Hi guys, Barker-Stargazer here. Mum of three, general crafter, usually focusing on crochet, and today we are no different. And if you have watched all my videos, you may notice there tends to be a bit of a lean to a certain show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
And today is no different. We are going to be constructing Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 4, and yes, Thunderbird 4 will be able to go inside Thunderbird 2. Well, fingers crossed it works. The first part I decided to start on were the long engines of Thunderbird 2 that run alongside. These were quite simple once they were started, as they were just a lot of rounds one after the other. As you can see there, my trusty pad, I have sketched out a full diagram of both Thunderbirds, which I did refer to while going through this entire make and design process. While the engine is worked on the round, as you can see there, I did start off with a rectangle, and once that was done, it was simply onto stuffing. This yellow band has been done with 3 rows of colour changes, where each stitch is started in one colour and finished in the next. It just creates more of a solid line, which I like to do for things like this. There were some decreased rows towards the end here as well. The next part I did was the back section of Thunderbird 2. While I did start with a magic ring, I worked backwards and forwards, creating a semicircle to begin with. Once I had the desired height, I did a row in the back loops only to start my curve. After this, I did start once again working in complete rounds, but making sure as I did any decreases that the bottom remained as straight as possible for the continuing structure of the Thunderbird. Doing this piece first really helped with a lot of the rest of the structural build, as I was able to simply increase from this. As you can see here, my trusty scissors to do the stuffing, and that is the back part of Thunderbird 2 complete. Of course, once I close that end. The next piece I chose to tackle were the struts that hold up the spoiler on the back of the Thunderbird. I decided to make 4 of these, 2 plain, but 2 which would include a tapestry crochet working of the number 2. Now you can see here that I'm working the number 2 in black. After I made all 4 struts and all 4 wings that also included some of this black detailing, I realised that it should be white, and I had to unpick the lot and do each individual piece again. The left and right strut do have their own individual patterns, so the number 2 is actually facing the correct way. And here I am working on the spoiler. The grey detailing has been worked in also using tapestry crochet methods, and while I am working backwards and forwards here, as I continued with the spoiler, I started to work it in a round just to limit how much sewing was actually going to be involved in its final construction. And then there were no more excuses. I had to tackle the nose cone. I have to admit, I was dreading this bit, and it did not disappoint in how hard it was to do, not just with incorporating the windows and the number 2, which I again did do in black instead of white. I was really nervous about this piece because it's such a crucial piece to give the overall feel of Thunderbird 2, but in the end I got there. I did a colour change similar to the one I did on the engine for this yellow stripe you can see here as well, and the rest of this front nose section was just decreasing on the round and trying to keep it as flat as possible. I chose to make all of these parts separate from each other just so it would give the finished piece some more strength and structure. Oh, look, a title of what I did next. The left wing, and you can see here all of the chicken scribble notes of the pattern so far. If you can decipher it yourself, you've got it for free there. So here is a wing almost complete. I believe I did say it's the left wing, isn't it? There's just some white stripes to work on this side. The other wing included the number 2 on it and a T. So this white strip has been done with a colour change rose, again starting in one colour and finishing each individual stitch in a second colour to give a much sharper line. And yes, I use a paper template for embroidering in the detail, which again I'm doing in the wrong colour. I wish I could say this is just so easy, but it really isn't. I unpick these millions and billions of times, just seeing how they'd look if I do the colour change a row, a stitch higher, a stitch lower. It is time consuming to plan out all of these pieces. The next part was the module itself. I did actually crochet the vast majority of it at the park while my kids played, so there's no footage of that. I'm using a basic slip stitch here to connect all the pieces together. Ignore my chicken legs in the background. I did do end pieces to match the sections the module was connecting to, again as I've said, just to give the piece a little bit more structure. The bottom of Thunderbird 2, which will be the part that opens, was simply rows working backwards and forwards, and I was surprised at how little increases were needed. We are back to the struts here. In order for the struts to be able to hold up the spoiler of Thunderbird 2, I did use wire. I placed them in between both of the pieces and then crocheted through both pieces, trapping the wire in between the stitches as I went. And yes, you can see here that the 2 is still in black, just to show you how far I got before I realised this mistake and had to unpick it and make it white. Thunderbird 2 is so big, I'm actually having problems getting it on screen. So we've got a few bits to assemble. The struts which hold the spoiler actually have some wire running alongside. So they're now rigid to hold this up. But I'm not going to attach these bits until after I've done the wire framework for inside module. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to create the metal frame, crochet over it and then slip stitch it into place. That way I shouldn't have any nasty ends. Before moving on to the wire structure, I decided to fasten the snaps in place. I was originally going to use Velcro, but I felt the snaps would hold more securely, and as there will be a bit of pressure on Thunderbird 2's compartment with having Thunderbird 4 in there, I just felt this was a better option. I attached 5 of them, and they've also had the benefit of holding the shape of Thunderbird 2 as well. I found the front cone section was pulling upwards just due to the weight and the shape of everything, so this option did work quite well. So I made 4 of these curled strips of wire of various different lengths and heights to follow the curve of Thunderbird 2's main module. I also did 2 long strips just to give it a bit more security and something for the arch pieces to hold on to. Once they were all to a length I was happy with, and I'd used my lovely little colourful pliers to make sure none of the ends of the wires were going to dig in, I started to crochet around one of the longer pieces. I did have a fiddle to see if I could join all of the metal pieces together before I started crocheting, but it just worked out easier in the end to attach as I went with the crochet stitches themselves. And it was just a case of running slip stitches through the main body of Thunderbird 2 and the crochet loops that are around the wire to secure them. It's worked out really well. Alright, so here we are at the assembly part of Thunderbird 4. I don't have any bits about me crocheting the parts because I actually did it while I was away on holiday, but I am going to show you the full construction process. Starting once again with the main body of the engines running alongside, I crocheted separate ends for both of these engines. As you can see, the piece is flat, and I attached
so I could easily insert stuffing and manipulate the shape as I attached it to the main body of Thunderbird 4. Onto stuffing the main body itself. As you can see, I've worked tapestry crochet in again for the details of the windows. I also worked tapestry crochet on the round to create this back door. It does bend in slightly in the middle, and that's an intended part of the design, as the doors on Thunderbird 4 are bent in slightly, or at least that's what I could see when I looked at images of it. Now moving on to what I truly believe is the first of the 3 escape pods on Thunderbird 4. But my children have since said that they're not escape pods, and now I'm questioning myself. I did initially think that all 3 of these were just going to be able to work off one pattern, and then I remembered that the number 4 needed to be on each of the side escape pods, so that meant essentially there were 3 different patterns for basically the same shape. The engine ends were worked separately on the round just so the shapes could be maintained. It was simply easier to make it separately, stuff it, and then attach it at this later stage. I left attaching the main body of the engines until after the escape pods were in place, simply because it was easier with fitting everything in the correct place. I knew through countless measurements that everything was going to fit properly, and also having the stripe of red along the escape pods just made getting them in place a lot easier. And once again, I've got my trusted wire out. These are the fins on the top of Thunderbird 4. They do need to be bent to get Thunderbird 4 into Thunderbird 2's module, so I felt having the wire in them was a good idea. And oh, these fins, I honestly lost count of how many of them I actually made to get them right. Honestly, I didn't know there were so many ways to make a triangle.
And here it is, Thunderbird 2 in all of its glory with Thunderbird 4! Now the engines do have to be pushed in and the fin put down, but that's part of the reason I put a bit of metal in there as well. So that is now going to be boxed up and off it goes.
Thunderbirds are go.
Now I will say Thunderbird 2 took absolutely ages to do, and a lot of that was because I was working in Aran weight, but I wanted the size of Thunderbird 4 to be the same, so I also worked that in Aran weight as well. And I think if Thunderbird 4 had been made in a bigger yarn, the details would have been lost. So there we go. Hopefully I will get this pattern written up relatively soon, and I will be selling Thunderbird 2 and Thunderbird 4 in a bundle. So if you would like to be notified when that pattern is available, follow me on any of my social media sites or give me a message here. Thanks everyone. Bye.